Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf on the very last day of 2021. Yeah, I hope you all have a good New Year's Eve and a really fantastic start of 2022. But first, today is, for me at least, time to recap, to look back at the year that is almost over, and reading-wise, see how I've done. And I will combine that. I will do a tops and flops, of course, of the year, but I will combine the look back. How did I do with my plans and my goals? With the tag that was created 3 years ago by Adam. Then from Memento Mori. Do you remember when Adam was still on YouTube and made not only videos, but made an original tag? And it's the book Postscript Tag, in which he asked a couple of questions about the reading year, but not what was your the best book or the worst book. And I thought the questions really fit well with this, my idea of this video, the recap. I will leave a link to Adam's now classic video of 2018 below, and I saw Kim from Middle of the Book March doing the tag. That's why I remembered it, and Adam tagged me back then in 2018, and Kim tagged everybody, so I consider myself tagged. Anyway, let's have a look at 2022. Yes, the first thing, because I have to look, on my notes, otherwise the first thing is the goals thing. As you know, I already posted a video about my reading goals and plans for 2022. And I saw this really fantastic video by Gina from Gina Stanier's Books, about goals, and that actually the best goal is no goal. I will leave a link to her video down below. So if you have issues with goals, you should definitely watch her video. You should watch her video anyway. And I don't want to make a long reaction video to her. She basically said that goals very much constrain her and limit her, and I can see that. But I also think that is not true for everybody. And if I speak for myself, for me, goals really help me to get my lazy bum off the couch. I am a really lazy person, and if I don't have something, to go to and to strive for, I'm probably ending up doing nothing. I would probably still read, yes, but the idea for me to get a grip on the vast possibilities, I think I am just the opposite of Gina. For me, if I don't have more concrete goals, I will feel overwhelmed. I have the tendency of feeling overwhelmed of what I could do and this and that. So if I'm not always sticking to the plan. That's it's a whole different video, but it really helps me. So, but if you are one of the people who, when you see all the reading goals of 2022 coming in your subscription feed, and you think, oh my God, watch Gina's videos, because you're not alone. There are people who feel that goals are restrictions rather than a helpful, framework like it is for me. So that said, how did I do with my goals in 2021? One of the goals was reading along with certain YouTube book clubs. And the first one, I have mentioned it a gazillion times, is Mel's book club. I don't know, that's 5 years running or something, or maybe even more, reading around the world. I did pretty well. I didn't read all 12, but I read 10 books. So that's pretty good for me. One book I couldn't get, and one book I just didn't get to. So, but 10 out of 12 is not bad. And if you have watched my 2022, I will continue. Less well I did with the book Naturalists-Bookclub. That is a new book club, at least new. Let me get rid of this. I'm sorry. Focus back on you. That was started this year by Heidi from My Reading Life and Doris from All the Books. I will leave the announcement for 2022 down below. If you want to join, they announced always at the beginning of the year, they announce all the books that they will read. And so you can, see which book, which month. We read 1 or 2 books a month. But in 2021, I think I read maybe 3. Let me see. Yes, 3. In my defense, I have to say, a lot of the books that I didn't read were by male authors. And even though, to answer a question that some of you always ask me in the comments, why don't you read male authors? I do read male authors. I just don't talk about them on the channel because this channel is to promote female writers. But it, of course, also means that I read much more female writers than male writers because I need books to talk about on the channel. And I want to focus more on female writers. So a lot of the books that they picked, Heidi and Doris picked for this year, were male writers, and I just didn't have the space to incorporate them. But I don't have this excuse next year for sure, because every single book they will read is by a female author. So if I haven't read all 12, or at least there are more than 12, because some months you have 2 books, but at least 1 book a month. Yes. Then the challenge that I always do also every year is the Reading Women Challenge. I believe a link to the 2021 challenge below. And the last book I had to read was a cookbook by a woman of color. And I read not really a cookbook, but I read a book about Edna Lewis, a famous Black Southern cook. So I completed that challenge. And unfortunately, that was the last year. This year was the last year to do this challenge because sadly, Kendra will stop with the Reading Women podcast and also with the Reading Woman Challenge. So, but again, if you watch my 2022 plans video, I came up with plenty of other challenges by myself. But it's sad because I really liked that challenge. They always had 24, prompts, and it really broadened my reading horizon. So I definitely like that. Then I had a couple of my own reading goals, and one was the AuthorSpotlight from 2020, Louise Erdrich, to finish up with that, because there was 2 books actually coming out, or 1 book we hadn't read, The Night Watchman, and then another book came out, and I couldn't get the sentence, so we will read that in January. And if I say we, it's because the AuthorSpotlight 2020, Louise Erdrich, I'm doing that with Terry. But we finished in April with everything that was available until then. And the last book, The Sentence, we will do in January. So I consider this challenge completed because it was, higher powers that I couldn't get the book. I also had a new AuthorSpotlight 2021 to read all of George Eliot's novel in publication order. And I did that, except for the fact that the first one, The Clerical Life, Scenes of a Clerical Life or something, is 3 novellas, and they are considered to form together as sort of a novel, but I didn't count that, so I started with Adam Bede. But I read all the novels that I consider novels. I'm sorry, Kim. I'm sure you disagree with me. So I completed that challenge. That I was pleased with myself because they are chunky books. We will come to one of those chunky books later. And then there was the genre spotlight. I wanted to focus on sci-fi. And I read at least 1 sci-fi book each month. So I think that is pretty. I didn't read all the modern classics written by female authors that I had on my list, but to read at least one sci-fi book every month, I consider the challenge, fulfilled, done. Then I have a couple of things that I it's not in specific years, but what I always do. And that is one of the things has to do. It bugs me. I need to go to the hairdresser. Anyway, but they are closed for the holidays, so have to wait until January. One of the things is that I don't have a fixed TBR or get your TBR down. I only have one rule, and that is each month read more books than you buy. Not necessarily all the books I buy, but if I read more books than I buy, I'm fine. And I look at it every month and then at the end of the year. And I definitely, at the end of the year, I read 31 books more than I bought. I bought a lot of books, absolutely, and I don't mind. I don't mind to spend money on books, but the fact that I, at least read more than I bring in, that is my only rule. And related to that is the challenge that I always do in the summer, the 30 books in 30 days, because July is my birthday month and I bring in a lot of books in July. I get books as presents, but I get also gift cards and vouchers. And in order to balance that, I normally do in July the 30 books in 30 days. But this year I did it in August because I was really busy in July, despite being my birthday month. But I completed that challenge as well. And the last thing that I always try to do is try to read at least one translated work each month and at least one a person of color author each month, and I did that. I read 14 translated works, which for some people like Mel is nothing, but for me it's okay. And I read on average 2 books by a person of color author each month. So me, happy with how those goals and challenges turned out. And then to the remaining questions from the tag, the book postscript tag. The first one is the biggest book that you read, and I mentioned George Eliot before, and all her books are chunky except for Silas Marner, but this was the biggest one, Daniel Deronda. It clocks in on Goodreads with 912, but this vintage edition has 899 pages. But Goodreads tells me this is the biggest book that I read. And it was not my favorite George Eliot. My favorite is Romula, still, historical fiction set in 14th century Florence. But this was a good book about Daniel who tries to find his way. We learn about his background. He is an orphan. He's raised by not a relative, but a guardian. And there is something, murky in his past in terms of he doesn't know who his mother is. And there's also a woman who he is interested in, and another woman he might be interested. The typical George Eliot setup at that time. The book was published, I think, in 1870 something. Let me check. Some things never change. 1876. But I definitely liked it, and it was the biggest one. Let me see. Next question. How many books did you reread? That is also something that I want to continue this next year, to reread books, because I often feel like a lot of people, I think, who are on BookTube, that there's so many new books out there, so many books you haven't read, that you feel it's maybe a waste of time to reread. And I really tried again to reread this year, and I reread 12 books, which is roughly a book a month. I mean, sometimes it was 2 books a month, but on average a book a month, which is okay. And when I was young, I reread a lot. And then comes this phase where you think, oh, there's so many books out there. So I enjoyed rereading, and I will definitely pick that up. And the next in 2022. And the next question is related. It's the favorite reread and a book that you read this year that might become a favorite reread. And the favorite reread was Ursula Le Guin, The Left Hand of Darkness. It's still one of my absolute favorite sci-fi books. This friendship between an ambassador and a person, a high-placed aristocrat from this very strange place where the ambassador has to go to this planet. I think it's fantastic. It's about friendship, but also about what happens when two very, very different cultures meet, how you can understand each other when you have a completely different background. Is that possible at all? I love it. And it's so... also heartbreaking, the personal tale of these two men. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I read this because I'm with Adam. We are reading all of Ursula Le Guin's work, and we made our way through her sci-fi. And in January, we will pick up the Orsinia. And the book that I read this year and that I want to reread is a work of translated fiction, this is the translation by Antoinette Fawcett, translated from the Dutch, and the author is Eva Meyer, A Bird Cottage, and it is about a woman who actually existed and who wrote about birds, who observed birds not as a scientist in a way, but as a lay scientist. I thought this was so charming, and I certainly want to reread this. That's for sure. The last two questions are about mass appeal and specialized appeal. So it's about books that you think you would recommend to everybody, or at least a wide variety. And I'm not good in recommending books for everybody, but there is certainly a book that I think everybody should read and that I gift a lot, also because it's short. And that is Mary Beard's Women and Power from 2017. That's two speeches she gave about women in ancient history up to now, and how we treat women in power and how we look at women and power. I think it's two brilliant essays, and like I said, everybody should read. And the other book is a book that is a specialized appeal, so that a book that you really liked, but that is not for everybody. And for this, I chose a book that is translated fiction. I have to look up the translator, and that is Pilar Quintana Bitch, translated from the Spanish by Lisa Dillman, this book. And it's also a short book, and it's about a woman and the dog that she adopts, but also the dog that her husband already has. And let me say, most of the time the dogs are not treated very well, and that's certainly not for everybody. It's quite gruesome at times, I would say. I mean, I thought it was a good book, but it's gruesome. Yes. The last book, the last question is the channel reflection and, favorite videos. And I want to keep this short because we are nearing 20 minutes, but it's a recap, so bear with me. I'm really happy on BookTube. I'm really happy with the videos and the comments and engaging with people, buddy reading with other BookTubers or people who comment. I think my favorite videos to make are always the tops and flops, because they are fun. First of all, especially the flops, but it's also a good way for me of looking back at my reading month and really picking books that will stick with me in in a positive or in a negative sense. So those are videos that I really like to make. I will continue in 2022 to stick with the 2 videos a week schedule. That really works for me, but this will be probably the last video on Friday, last day of the year, last video on a Friday, because I will go back to filming on Sunday. And that will also mean that I will upload Sunday and Wednesdays again. That worked for me in the past. I had to reshuffle for various reasons, but I want to go back because that really worked better for me than the Friday filming. That is not to say that I'm not enjoying filming today on this last day of the year. Anyway, so this was my recap of 2021 with, as a sort of PS, the postscript tag created by Adam in 2018. Thank you very much for watching this video and all the videos in the last year, for all your comments and your input that I get. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you will stick with me next year, and I'll see you all soon then in the next one.